I'm quite sure that when most people noticed the title of this week's Shabbos video on the Parsha, they thought I would be speaking about the Egler Arufa. Not at all. Takes the pasuk, Ki tishmaras kol hamitzvah hazos la'asosa asher anochi mitzavcha hayom. Kadosh Baruch Hu through Moshe Rabbeinu informs Klal Yisrael that when the day would come, that day that is looked so greatly forward to, where there will be a manifestation on the part of Klal Yisrael, Yahava es Adonai Elohecha, that we will have such a love for Kadosh Baruch Hu, explains the Or Chaim HaKadosh, just love, no fear, not so much awe, but such love for him. That we will be promised to walking in his ways for the rest of our lives and the rest of the eternity of the world in Klal Yisrael. Then, when we are granted the 3 additional lands of Keni, Kadmoni, and Knizi, in addition to the 7 already granted to the descendants of Avram Avinu as promised to him by Kadosh Baruch Hu, why then we need add an additional 3 cities of refuge. So 3 within Eretz Yisrael, 3 within Transjordan on their eastern side, and 3 within those 3 lands that will be added. In order that no needless blood should be spilled within the terrains of Klal Yisrael that God is granting us. Says the Malbim, this speaks about a time Aval sheyitem lahem nachlas gimel amim tzorach schus yoser godel liyahava es Hashem ahava shlema kayemes liyolam sheyihi golei lefanov sheyocha b'drachav kol hayomim. That there will be such a love that we have for the Almighty that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will well recognize that it is so pure and so pristine and so undiluted that we will be granted that ultimate gain of 3 lands. So I was terribly bothered by a question raised in these psukim that I saw no one discuss whatsoever, other than the Torah's Moshe of the Chassam Sofer, in which he asks, he says, Yesh Lakar, we have to dig deeply into our understanding. How is it possible that we will ultimately be granted these lands because we are in such love with the Kadosh Baruch Hu and hearkening to every precept that we were granted? So how is it possible that we could have the spilling of needless blood, which requires a city of refuge, that we have to add 3 more cities? How's it possible? He offers an answer in the name of his Rabbi, the Haflah, that maybe it's because of the fact that we will be given those 3 new lands, and there will be such a permeation of tomb of impurity there from those whom we are inheriting from those areas, that there could still be the spillage of blood. But I offer a different answer. The answer that I offer is that we need understand and awaken to the fact that the entire nation of Israel could be promised to the unending love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the observance of all of his directives. And yet we can still fail to appreciate the value of each and every other Jew, because that's how, according to some of the Baalei Machshava, that's how an inadvertent act of homicide occurs. We don't know. Look at the psukim. We don't realize that someone else is in the forest while we're chopping wood. We're not aware. We're not in tune. We're not in step with the fact that another Jew is there. And therefore, we are somewhat clumsy in the lack of precautions taken by us for the actions that actually come forth from ourselves. So we kill someone else, b'shogeg, inadvertently. And I need to tell you that when I saw these psukim this week, and I thought to myself, Klal Yisrael is in such a state of moroseness following Tisha B'Av. Oy vavoy! Even worse than what was before Tisha B'Av. with a blatant murder of those 6 hostages. Hours, if not less, than the arrival of the IDF within Gaza. And now, of course, everything is crazy in Eretz Yisrael. Hundreds of thousands taking to the streets, effectively saying to Netanyahu, you don't have sufficient value for our relatives, for the Jews who are yet in hostage. And Netanyahu and his government are effectively answering, really? And what about the value for those hostages who have already been killed, that they should die in vain? What about the value for the upwards of 600 young men and women that we've lost in our entry into Gaza to rescue them? What about the value of the future lives of all of Klal Yisrael living in the land of Israel, dependent upon safe borders, which perforce requires the decimation of Hamas? It's all about the value of each other, the value of Jewish life. And never lo aleinu, lo aleinu, lo aleinu, what it takes for us to wake up and to recognize and appreciate the value of each other, such that even when we reach a point in Jewish history when we will be granted the 3 additional lands because of the most magnificent love that we have for HaKadosh Baruch Hu and our determined allegiance to his every word, we will still need Arei Mikla, because we'll still have to work on attaching an appropriate value to each other. What a lesson for these days of Elul, granted us by the Psukim in this week's Parsha. What an important challenge for us to accept upon ourselves, to focus on, concentrate on, and commit ourselves to in these days of tshuva, when we so greatly need and plead with the Borei Olam to return us to his midst. Have a good Shabbos.